Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. If I don't have questions, I don't have a show. I do have some questions. Some were from the last show. Some were from questions that came in through videos this week. Had some events that happened this week. So this has been an interesting week. And I want to talk about it. This is Saturday. I normally try to shoot these Ask Earl Anythings before the weekend. But this weekend I did it specifically after my Swigs gig because I had a question about how my Tama hardware held up. So we're going to talk about that today and among other things. All right. So a couple things. First off, this is a leftover from last week. I had a question about Travis Orbin. And, you know, when I answered it, I looked at his videos. I'm not aware of his drumming very much other than looking at his videos. But the person who sent me the question, and I apologize for not having that name. I think it was David something. You know, I didn't really give it the time I should have, so I apologize for that. Basically, he was on Modern Drummer's cover at one point, or at least his name was on the cover. I don't know if he was on the cover story or not. The funny thing about the last bunch of years of Modern Drummers, I'm not reading them as much. I find myself thumbing through them, maybe picking and choosing a certain portion of the magazine I like, but it's very rare that I read all the magazine anymore. Where my early days of reading Modern Drummer, I read cover to cover almost every word in it. So this is a whole new world for me. So I apologize for not giving you a full and thorough review of Travis's playing. Travis's playing is more in that metal genre, from what I can tell. Plus, he's got... I hate genres. You know, I am so tired of trying to put people into genres. And one of the reasons why I hate genres is because I'm not a genre guy. People think I am. You know, when people see me play and they see me do a big band cover, they think I'm a jazz drummer. And when guys watch me play a 70s song, they think I'm a classic 70s drummer. Or a soft rock drummer when I'm playing Elton John or Billy Joel. I find it limiting putting people in genres, and I hate doing that. But today's new world is about being a specialist. I'm a specialist. I do this, I do this, I do this, and I don't do anything else. And I grew up in a world which was a world of being a jack of all trades. And my musical career started as being a jack of all trades and not taking on the luxury of just being a rock drummer. Because it would have been easier for me to say, I just play rock, the rock, classic rock of the day, which wouldn't have been called classic rock when I was a kid. This would have been called rock music. So I'm going to play Grand Funk, I'm going to play Led Zeppelin, I'm going to play Chicago, whatever it is. Then I get into those small genres of that rock music, horn band rock, you know, or R&B, or soul, or funk, or, you know, then all of a sudden they started getting into fusion. And that was like the 70s era, and then of course there was just pop music. Well, the genres are so vast and so far reaching now, and even back for the people that taught me how to play drums, they said you can't just play rock. You need to play rock, but you got to play swing, you got to play jazz, you got to have a triplet feel, you got to know how to play rumba or cha-cha or a whatever, a merengue. So that's the way I grew up. But today, when you look at people, everything's about being a specialist in what they do, and they don't have the broader sense. My wife, Dr. Stephanie Bennett, who's a professor, okay? You call her Mrs. Hammer. Mrs. Hammer teaches at a liberal arts college. And when we grew up, we both got liberal arts degrees. And one of the things we're noticing is a lot of people today get a degree, a BS, Bachelor of Science degree, okay? And it's in a very specialized field, and that's what they go into, and it trains them for their job. But when we grew up, we went into college to get a broad spectrum of knowledge. So my study was in music, so I was exposed to all kinds of music. So I have a hard time labeling people, is what I'm saying. And I have a hard time being labeled. And that, I guess that's kind of the theme of this week. This week it's got a theme. There's going to be a theme in this week somehow. I haven't pre-thought it out, but I'm looking at the questions, and it brings me to this real rant that I'm going through in my real life, in my work life, with specialists versus somebody who can do a lot of different things. I don't like the limitations of being said you only play this. Now, when I'm being asked to play something and I feel it's outside of my genre, like certain metal music is, with double bass and that clicky bass drum and really fast, I'm going to say, hey, that's not my thing. I don't do that. But if I got thrown into having to play Zeppelin or having to play, that's not heavy metal, it's classic rock, let's say Guns N' Roses, I could surely play Guns N' Roses. I can even hack Metallica if I want to. I did one cover last year. But do I think I'm a perfect Metallica player that loves the music? I imbibe it? No. So what I've been trying to do on my channel is play stuff that I really love to play, or stuff that really does something for me in my playing. And I haven't gotten to the place where I'm playing some really outside stuff, where I have to work really hard. And maybe that's where I need to go with my channel. Maybe I need to go into playing stuff that I have to work a little harder on. It takes a little bit longer to get a video out. Most of my videos on this channel are stuff I can churn out, even the big band stuff. One of the fun things about doing the big band covers for me is I put the same limitations I put on my pop rock covers, where I try to play the song down within an hour. That's from learning it to videoing it, because I put the videotape on from square one and I go for the hour. And then if I can get it all done in an hour, it's even better, which sometimes I do. And if it takes an hour and a half to do the video side and the mix, that's what it is, And as you guys all know, I don't stress the mix either, to my detriment sometimes, because I know how to get a good mix. But a good mix takes time. And my whole philosophy of YouTube has been a philosophy of get a lot of content out there, keep it in the stream. So what you're starting to see is my crumbs, because I haven't been recording videos lately. I've been doing a lot of other things, actually rather cool things. I'm working on other CD projects and record projects that are going to come out in the future. My church is doing something. I play some percussion, may play some drums on that. I don't know. One of the guys in the church band has got some very interesting music that's kind of electronic, and he wants to put some acoustic on top of it. So I laid a drum track on one thing. I've been doing conga tracks and percussion tracks. I did Kelly's album. I worked on this Christian album last year, my friend Joe West, and I put some of that up on the channel. So I am actually doing lots of different music, and this week I played with the Swigs. And I had a Swigs gig, and I streamed some Instagram, and I'm going to put a little bit of some of that gig on the front end of the video and the back end of the video. It's just me playing drums, but it's me live streaming to my Instagram channel. For the first time, I never did live streaming there, and I want to do more live streaming. But as far as my YouTube channel goes, my YouTube channel's been about getting lots of videos and doing lots of videos, and maybe I need to change my philosophy. So I'll take your input. If you guys have any input, definitely give it to me. And I've already ran it a bunch of minutes right now, and the camera keeps going. So anyhow, I just wanted to apologize for the Travis Orbin thing, that I didn't do the deep dive research into his setup and what he was doing. I looked at his setup and critiqued that, but didn't really go into his music. And by the way, David, I didn't really get a chance to listen to it. I've been doing a lot of stuff lately, so I apologize for that. All right, so, which brings me to, I got a bunch of cool questions this week. Let me find one of the ones that can go down a little bit. All right, my first, it's kind of a comment question. This comes from Hungry Drummer Joey. Hey, Joey. Now, little backstory on Joey. Joey and I went to the same college. He's in college, and back in 1978 through 1982, I was in that college. And there was a video he dropped this week, where he's playing this old Gretsch kit that's it's not Champagne Sparkle, but you can see the wrap was taken off. A lot of guys do that. Like my 12-inch Tama on my other kit, the wrap came off. Actually, the whole little maple kit the wrap's been taken off of those drums for most of them. So I'm looking at the kit and I see the 4 holes pattern like a diamond. And I'm thinking, is that the little Gretsch kit we had in college? Because we had a diamond plate Slareland tom mount on it. And now it had a pearl tom mount on it. So I commented about that. And that was really cool. And we had a conversation. And then he put up a gospel video. And when he put up the gospel video, I said something to him like this. Man, it reminds me of church in Jersey City back in my day. Nice playing. And Hungry Joey goes, hey, thanks, Earl. What church did you play at? If it's still around, laugh out loud. Well, the church I played at was actually not in Jersey City. It was in Teaneck, New Jersey. And it was like a full gospel tabernacle. I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me. But there were a couple guys in college. One guy was named Carl. The other one was named Ricky Carlos. And Ricky Carlos lived in the college apartments the first semesters. They're like, I lived in the college apartments the whole time, which that's a whole nother story. 2030 Kennedy? No, that's my, stay off that one. I can't remember, something 40 Kennedy Boulevard, right across the street from the college. I stayed in that building. I don't know if they still have it, Joey, by the way. But anyhow, Ricky Carlos and Carl, they went to this Bible study, and I came to the Lord my second semester of college, and by the second year, they were kind of asking me questions like, hey, do you want to go to a Bible study? And it was in Teaneck, and the reason they were asking was because I had a car and they didn't. So it was like, let's get in Earl's car, he'll take us to Teaneck, and we'll go to the Bible study. So I went once or twice, and then middle of the semester, things get heat up. You got to practice, you got to write papers, all that kind of stuff. And one day comes along, and they said, hey, do you want to go to Bible study? And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of busy. And Ricky Carlos, who was the drummer, goes, hey, I'll let you play drums. I said, okay, you'll let me play drums? Great. So we would play songs like, I've Got a River of Life. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. We play that as a shuffle for like 45 minutes. We go into that and then more tunes like that. So he had that kind of groove on it. But that was the church I was talking about. It was this church in Teaneck. And I used to go periodically, and I've got bunches of stories from that place. My contemporary Christian band played there on a Mother's Day. That was a whole nother trip, which I will not go into that story. But if you knew me personally, I would tell you that story in real life, but not on the camera. But it was a lot of fun, and it's one of those college memories. We did a bunch of things with those guys. My first recording experience was with those guys. I was playing congas and tambourine on a track, and we went down to record at this studio in Teaneck. It was in Teaneck, and they had a little 8-track board, and they had us all set up in the room to play. And then they had some equipment problems. I'll never forget that night. But the funny thing was my friend Pat O'Donnell was playing drums that night. And they had a drum booth. And he had like a 24-inch kick drum and an 18-inch floor tom and a 9x13 tom that he brought. And he couldn't get the floor tom in the booth. The booth was so small in the corner. He couldn't get his floor tom in. That was crazy. So, but we didn't record there. We ended up recording in the studio called Ears, Eastern Artists Recording Studio, which was like on a train track near a train station, old train station they converted. And I was in the booth with Pat, and we did a session. And I never got those songs. So if Ricky Carlos sees this, or Pat, if you guys got those songs, I'd love to hear the final tracks. But that was my first recording experience. In college, I had a couple recording experiences. Nothing playing drums, but it was always percussion. And Ricky Carlos used to call me up, and he'd always like, hey, I wrote this triangle part. Can you play triangle and tambourine on this song? I'll never forget, I was out of college about a year or two, and he calls me up and he calls me up, hey, we're doing this piece at the church. Can you come down and play triangle and tambourine? I was like, Ricky, man, I don't do triangle and tambourine anymore gigs. I'm sorry, don't do them anymore. 2 years out and I had 2 kids. It was like, nah, I'm not doing them anymore. Those days are done. But just kind of funny how life goes, you know. But yeah, that's my church story, Joey. And I thought it was more fun to tell it to you than so. You and I got the joke. Next question is from Rich Raw Dog Drums. He says, anyway, hope you have some footage from your upcoming gig this weekend. Have a great show. He said, here's what it is. Cool, Earl, you guys sound great. This was on my Swigs video I put from the last one. He said, weren't you leery about setting up your kit on the grass? So if you remember the video, we're playing Midnight Confession by the Grassroots, and I'm on plywood. And I did this gig twice with the Swigs. Matter of fact, that gig is happening again this weekend. And the funny thing is the bass player and one of the keyboard players are in a different band that got this gig, okay? And that different band couldn't do it one year, so they asked the Swigs to do it because they're in the Swigs too. So Mark and Ray got us on the gig, and now the gig's been bounced back and forth year to year. It goes back and forth from their other band. So they're playing today a paid gig, okay? Which is kind of interesting, but not with the Swigs, so I'm not on that gig. But I was on last year's gig. But the first time I played it, I had this kit with a 4-piece and my stands, and I'm on this plywood stage, and it's wobbly and everything else is going on it, and that was a nightmare. This gig, the one we filmed, I brought in the drum rack. That's my son-in-law's drum rack, the Gibraltar rack, and I put everything on the rack, and I had the concert toms, and the concert toms and the kit were there because it was going to rain that day. It was supposed to be serious rain. We got some drizzle, but we never got the huge downpour, which was a blessing to us. So I had the 22-inch Gretsch bass drum with the 10, 13, 16 concert toms, all mounted off of that rack. I think I had one extra cymbal stand off to the side for the 16 crash, but all the cymbal stands were off it. The only thing that was loose was the hi-hat, snare drum, and that one extra cymbal stand. And the bass drum was actually attached to the rack too through the mount hole on the bass drum. I had an arm going through it, and it held it, and the bass didn't move. The first year, the kick drum was just moving the whole time. So that was driving me nuts. But I had that thing locked down. And if I ever do that gig again, as much as I love my Tama classic hardware, I would probably have to use that setup for that gig, because that gig on plywood is a nightmare. There's nothing more of a nightmare than a drummer setting up on plywood. So, and I've done it a few times. I've done gigs on the back of, tractor trailers, flatbeds. I've done gigs on flatbed tractor trailers. I've done gigs in trailers converted into stages that they can bring places. I've done some nightmarish gigs, where like you're on a high riser and I'm on the edge and I could have fell off a couple times. So, I mean, this wasn't as bad as that because you're on the ground, but it wasn't fun playing it. But last year's gig on that we recorded, nothing moved. It was solid as a rock with that rack. So I will say that's a good place to have a rack, is on that gig. Now, the other thing is the gig last night, I used my Tama classic hardware with the flat bass stands, and I was on a riser, and it worked. It worked on a rock gig. It worked. Nothing fell over. Okay, everything stayed in its place. I don't like generally playing on risers, though. I do have this feeling on risers where you're kind of a little jittery about stuff, So it was an interesting gig last night. And when I put the footage on the front and the back end, we were trying to play to the room and play quietly. One of the big things about the owner of this club was if bands play loud, they never come back there. That's his rule. If you're too loud the whole gig, you can't turn it down. He won't ever hire you again. Well, we've never been hired there. This was a benefit we did for this girl who had a terrible car accident, and we were helping with her medical bills, I guess, raising money for it. So it was a benefit gig. Typical Swigs gig. Swigs bring me into gigs where what's get paid mean, I mean, that was last night. We did make $20 for gas, so I will say that. I'll have to call that one out. But yeah, the riser was the scariest part about it, but I will say my Tama Classic hardware didn't move. It stayed right there. And I think that was another, somebody had a question about that too, so I think I'm answering another question, so let me look. I can't remember who it was. Okay. Somebody asked a question about that. I said I would do a gig recap. And they asked me the question, would you use your Tama Classic hardware on a rock gig? And the answer is yes, I would. Okay? But you got to know how you play. Now, heavy duty stands don't seem to move. They don't seem to, by the way, but they move. And the Tama Classics, they stayed in place. And I mean, I love the hi-hat stand on the Tama Classic hi-hat stand. It's light and perfect. And there's nothing better than when you get to the end of the gig and you wrap everything up and you lift up that case and it weighs 21 pounds, 22 pounds. Trust me, your back loves you, as opposed to taking a trap case and jerking your back around. So from my perspective, at 58 years old, save your back. The sooner you start saving your back, the better off you're going to be. So, but hope that answers the question, Rich. That's the story. I got another question. Oh, I found the question. I knew I had it in here. It was Giza. Would you say this is mainly for jazz players, or would they hold up for rock players? This is the Tama Classic hardware stand video. He asked that question. And I said I would tell him about it on Ask Earl Anything. So it held up. You know, here's what I said to him. I said, I use these at my church every week. We rock out, no problem, 24-inch, 20-inch to 20-inch ride cymbal. I have a gig this weekend at a restaurant. I'll let you know about it. When I'm playing at the church with the solid floor, they don't move at all. The riser thing had me a little jittery, but I get that way jittery on risers anyhow. So risers always have a little bit of play to them. There's nothing you can do about that. So, but they didn't move. They didn't. And matter of fact, I had my camera mounted off one of the old Ludwig cymbal stands. They worked well. All right. Adam, AR drummer. Hi, Adam. He says, do you have any tips on mixing, EQing a snare drum? That's a great question. Now, I'm not going to take you to my computer. I will tell you my secret to mixing, EQing a snare drum. First off, your snare drum doesn't need the low end roll off. So if you're using a DAW, I usually roll off somewhere around 100 hertz. I kind of roll off with a light roll off. The other thing I found, depending on the room, it has an effect on your snare sound, by the way, is I kind of boost a little bit around 200-ish, somewhere in that. I kind of move it, so it could be 210, 220, 230, little bump, little 3 dB bump tops. Don't want to go too much higher than that. But the big thing I do is I carve out. If you're looking at a graphic EQ, you'll see that there's like this kind of, it looks like this. You kind of like the roll off, comes up 200, kind of bumps, and then about 300 to 700, and I move it, depending on how tight or wide I want it. I make a loop and I bring it down. And I actually cut out that really mid-rangey 300 to 700 K mid-rangey honk, because your snare drum has a honk in there, and I honk that out. So I honk out between 300 and 700, somewhere in there. Now it's never the same, and it's always kind of shaped to what I'm hearing in my speakers. So it's not like all I can do is give you a range. Then if I want to put a little bit of that sizzle on the end, I may boost somewhere between with a kind of a shelving EQ. Shelving EQ means it doesn't have a bump. It has like a shelve. It kind of raises the whole thing. I use a shelving EQ somewhere between, usually around 10K. So 10,000 hertz, I'm kind of shelving it a little bit. If I do a boost, that's where I would boost it with a boost kind of loop with a little curve. But that's kind of my EQ starting point. Now it's all about your ears. And Adam, I don't know how you're going to EQ it unless you're going to EQ the whole 2-track, because the way you record, is with that one recorder. So if you're EQing the master, you want to bring out the snare drum, or if the snare drum's bothering you, I would cut versus bringing it out. That's what I would do. Usually where I start is that little dip between 300 and 700K. Okay, I do the dip. That's more important than the boost. The boost is icing on the cake, think of it that way. When you think of EQ, you want to be reductive, not adding to it. So you want to be reductive, you want to reduce. So that's my tip for EQing anything, by the way. If you're EQing your kick drum, okay, I do the same roll off in that same 300 to 700 area to get rid of that snare drum, because a lot of times the snare drum gets in the kick drum mic. Same thing with the toms. Sometimes I'll have to do the same thing. Now, what I've been doing with toms is my toms, I boost those certain frequencies I want to hear, sometimes too much, as you can hear on some of my stuff, because I've got a sometimes I just drop the preset and I don't really think about it, and that's my problem. I'm moving too quick. But sometimes, the other thing you need to understand about my toms is I always gate them. So if I set my gates, they only open up when the tom gets hit. So if the snare drum's going on, this mic, here's something about miking. Here's a miking tip. When you're recording a full kit, all your mics are picking up all the noise. So your tom mics are getting bleed no matter what. You can't do anything about the bleed. The place you do the bleed is at the end. Now, when I do an album, sometimes I will do what I call a cut gate, where I will actually cut the track and I'll just take out all the tom hits, and I'll actually slice them. I'll do a slice. I'll slice it, and then I have a tom hit. And at that point in time, I'm actually gating it by not having a gate, but by only having it on when I just get rid of everything, or I mute everything around it. When I'm working on drum covers, and you can do this on anything, is you use a gate. And what you do with a gate is you only allow it to come in when you hit the tom. So by gating each of these microphones, I'm cleaning it up to only the tom sound. Okay? Now you can't do that with an overall 2-track mix. You're not going to use gating. But usually my snare and my kick I actually gate them too occasionally. Not a lot though. Usually the snare, not very much. I play too responsively on my snare. I have too many ghost notes and stuff, you know. But that's a great question. That's another question to go down the gating side. All right. And that brings me to my last question. And my last question I saved for the end for a reason. It comes from Michael Perry. Michael Perry goes, "Great show. I think you're losing weight," he says. "If so, please elaborate on your weight loss efforts and what led you to this journey. Thanks." All right. I have been losing weight. And I'm in the process of losing weight. And I hesitate to talk about weight loss because one of those things that I've not had success my whole life. I got to be honest. My weight, like I say a lot to people, like a lot of times when people go, I weigh 165. I weigh 130. I have a 30-inch waist. I have a 29-inch waist. Well, I haven't had a 29-inch waist since I was 8 years old. I have no idea what a 29-inch waist is. I say to a lot of people, I haven't been 200 pounds since I was 15, you know. It's not a joke. It's the reality of me, you know. I was always a big kid, and I know why I'm a big kid. It has a lot to do with how I grew up. And my mom, my dad, and my grandmother, who I grew up with my mom, my dad, and my grandmother in my household all the time, the whole time I was a kid, all the way up to growing up and getting married, and out the door at 22. I grew up in an environment where food was love. I mean, if we loved you, we made food for you. That's how it was. And my grandmother, to show me love, she would make me food. And I get food where most kids would not get food. Because I didn't give my kids a snack before bed every night. But my grandmother gave me a snack before bed every night. So I learned some really bad eating habits in my childhood. And one of the things that happens as you get older in life is you start dealing with your childhood. Because there's a circle of life. You know, if you've ever seen that movie, The Lion King, there is a circle of life. And we start as a child, and in the end, we end as a child in a lot of ways. I'm starting to see that with my mom and dad passing, my wife's mom, who's now in a home, who has Alzheimer's and is about as childlike as you'd ever want to see an 85-year-old person be. It's part of life. There's nothing you can do about these things. You're going to see it one day. And when you're young, you don't want to think about it. So turn me off right now. Don't think about what I'm saying. But your childhood affects you. So from the time I was a kid, I was a big kid. When I got to my 20s, my mom said, hey, you know, you need to lose some weight. I was about 220 pounds at the time. And by the way, 220 pounds is not the worst place to be. If I'm 220 pounds, I'm at my weight when I was 21 years old. 220 pounds. And by the way, talking about weight loss, I lost a lot of weight about 9 years ago. Right before my daughter's wedding, my youngest daughter's wedding, Sandra, 2010, I lost 102 pounds. And I did the same program I'm on now today to lose that weight. But the problem for me is not going to be losing the weight. The problem is going to be keeping the weight off. And keeping the weight off is more than just discipline. It's relearning who you are as a human being and not associating food with love. And that's the struggle. That's my big struggle right now. Now, I also am married to a foodie. My wife loves food, and we both love food together. So I'm not going to say that we haven't influenced each other in that respect, because we have. And we have our most fun when we're hanging out with people eating and having a blast. But I don't know how to be the thin person in the room. I'm learning, but I don't know how to be the thin person in the room. See, if you ever watch a thin person eat, and I have, because I've spent countless nights in hotels and restaurants eating meals by myself on the road for my day job over the last 30 years, okay? And what I've learned is when you watch a thin person eat, they pick, and they eat slow, and they leave stuff on their plate. And I was taught, don't leave anything on your plate, eat every bite, and go back for seconds if you want to. Okay, so there's a lot of unlearning for me. Now, what's the program I'm on? I'm not on an unhealthy program. I'm not on one of these crash diet programs. I'm on a program that in South Florida, which is called Quick Weight Loss. And it's basically and I didn't learn this the first go round, but I learned it when I came out of it the first time I came, first go round. I lost 102 pounds in 2010, right before I was 50 years old. I didn't learn until I got out of it what the program really was. I thought you just eat this magic 6 meals a day and everything works, okay? When you come out of it, you have to understand calories. So one of the things I've learned over the last 9 years is calories. The magic to this diet is it's pretty much a very low calorie intake, many meals a day diet. So I start my day with an orange and an egg. Now, it does have carbs in it. It's not keto. So a lot of times I'll have a 45 calorie bread, which is kind of like having a half a slice of toast instead of a full slice. It looks like a full slice, but it's a half a slice. So I have a slice of toast, an egg, and an orange. That's my breakfast. And then mid-morning, because you're in a program, they have to sell you something to keep you there. Because what they're doing is they're providing the accountability side of it. You're going in there and you're paying them money to be on their program and to visit them and have them look at what you eat, because you keep track of what you eat. And they say, oh, what'd you do there? Why'd you do there? How'd you cook that this way? Blah, 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 blah. What they're looking at is, did you keep these little meals into these little small portions and never get over 1,300 to 1,500 calories a day? Which for a guy my size, when I started this, which was over 300 pounds, I'll let you know, okay? And now I am under 300 pounds, by a solid 30 pounds. I'm in the 260s right now. It's one of my happy weights, by the way. I look pretty good in my 260s. I think I look pretty good here. Matter of fact, most of my videos that are early videos, I'm somewhere between 250 and 260. And I think if I could stay, I'd be happy if I stay under 250 the rest of my life. If I could stay under 250 the rest of my life, I'll be happy. But I'm realizing coming out of this diet is that what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to continue to have a mindset of losing, not gaining. But I am practicing something that I'm going to practice when I get out of this, which is called, you cannot have a denial mindset either. And the first time I did this, I was so strict about the diet. That's how I lost 102. I lost 102 pounds in the same amount of time I'm going to have this diet for. I started this in February and I finish it and come into what they call stabilization right around the beginning of September, right around my birthday. My birthday's the end of August. So I'll be coming out of it. Will I be 102 pounds down? I don't know. It's coming off slower this time. I'm older. Metabolism's harder to keep it intact, to make it work. But I'm hoping when I come out of it, if I'm in that 240 range or 250 range, if that's where I get to, and I got many more months, I still got a couple more months of this, and I could have some real pops at some point. But if I'm in that track of being there, what I have to do is I have to never put my mindset of like, well, I can eat big again. I have to continue to eat small. But if I have a day where I eat big, I have to go back to eating small. All right? And I have to realize that what I eat, if I'm planning on having, a drink, because alcohol adds a lot of calories to you, or if I'm planning on having a birthday party and I'm going to have a slice of cake or something, then I've got to figure out how I eat the other meals of my day. See what I'm saying? So I have to be planning for that a long time ahead. But what this program does is it's kind of like, it's like a small carb. I do a small carb, an egg, and an orange of fruit. And then I do this shake, which they give you, which is like 150 calories. And then I do lunch. It's like 4 ounces of chicken as usual, but there's lots of substitutes for that. And green vegetables, 2 vegetables. And then I have another apple or fruit. I can have grapes or whatever I want, but I usually have an apple. And then I have a bar, and their protein bars are the best protein bars around, period. They're better than Atkins. They're better than anything you can buy on the store. They taste like candy bars, okay? So they're that good. I mean, I could eat these rather than eating, Nestle Crunch bars or, Reese's Pieces or something. I mean, this is really, the peanut butter bar and their Crunch bar are excellent. And then I eat dinner. And dinner is usually a full protein, which will be 8 ounces of chicken or, 5.5 ounces of steak, and then you have two vegetables, usually green, but that's not always green. There's certain vegetables you try to stay away from, the starchy ones. And then you can have another starch. So a starch for me would be something like a half a baked potato, not a full baked potato. A full baked potato is 2 starches. See what I mean? And then in the evening, I have another one of those shake products, but it actually turns into a pudding. And then they have another, if I don't have the baked potato or the sweet potato half, then I might have one of their chip supplements, which is kind of like potato chips, but it's not potato chips. Everything's got protein in it. And everything about this diet is designed to keep your metabolism high. And you try to eat like when you first wake up, and you try to not eat at least an hour before you go to bed, and you drink a lot of water, and I drink a lot of water. You drink probably 80 to 100 ounces of water a day. I drink over 100 ounces some days. That's my problem. I love water. And you write it down, and then you talk to them a couple times a week. That's the program. So it's coming off. It is about discipline. It's about not cheating. But sometimes you're forced into situations where you can't eat exactly in the plan. And that's what I was trying to say. My mindset now is like the Swigs gig last night. I didn't know what I was going to get. So when I got there, they actually had food for us. We ordered off the menu. So I ordered the small salad with blackened chicken on top. Probably shouldn't have got blackened. You know, if my weight, associate, my weight, whatever they call those guys that work at the quick weight loss place, if they were watching me right now, they'd probably say, you shouldn't have had it with blackened, you should have had it plain. Well, plain gets old. So I said, you know what? I'm out. I'm getting blackened chicken on top of a salad. And one of my tricks is I put the salad dressing on the side. So I get honey mustard dressing on the side. And I dip my fork in it. And this is a trick I learned watching a thin person one day. Anyhow, all that to say is it's having an effect. This shirt looks a little bit better than being out here, right? I think so. You can actually read, I'm a drummer dad, just like a regular dad, just much cooler. So anyhow, hopefully I'm getting much thinner, but the thinness is not the reason why. That was the other part of your question, Michael. Why are you doing this? Well, thinness is not my motivating factor because I'm married 36 years. I am what I am. We are what we are. It's about living life. That's what it's about. It's about being healthy. It's about how I live life. When I get heavy, my back hurts. The heavier I get, the more my back hurts. The less I want to be engaged in physical activities, even though I forced myself to kind of do yoga and stuff for the last 5 years. So once a week I would do yoga, even in my worst, even at my biggest during this season of life. And I didn't want to get to how I allowed myself to get over there. That's another part of the problem, but I don't want to get into that. All I can say to you is I haven't stopped walking and doing things, but it started to hurt. And the fact that it started to hurt was telling me something. And then I saw my doctor last fall, and my doctor says to me, he goes, well, your physical's fine, your EKG's fine, your blood levels are fine, you're on blood pressure medicine, you're not on cholesterol medicine. But how long will it stay like this? I don't know, you're getting older. One day something can go wrong, and then all of a sudden you've got complications because your BMI is way off the chain, and they put morbidly obese on your chart, so it's not helping you, okay? So it's not a good thing. Long and the short of it was, we got to Christmas this year, and I told my wife, I'm going to do something after Christmas. I'm going to try it in January, see what happens. And if I'm not succeeding by February, I'm going back into that program, and that was the agreement. And I got to February, and I said, this is not working. I need something. And I reached out, went right into the program, and I started losing weight. So the key here is if next year at this time I'm still looking like I'm looking or better than I'm looking, and I'm not gaining and I'm living in that place, then I'm succeeding. Because that's really what success is. Success is living it. And my goal is to live life. So that is my goal. So I can have fun playing music. All right. I went really long, and I don't know how many people are going to make it to the end. But I will tell you this. I had a lot of fun. This was like a therapy session for me. I was just letting it go. You want to watch something else of my therapy session? You can watch me playing drums with the Swigs. We had a fun gig last night. Wasn't a perfect gig. There's nothing perfect about the gig. But I will say it was a fun gig. And it was nice to be playing out. And that's the reason why I play drums, is to play in front of people and to get that feedback you don't get in a studio playing to a camera. I get the feedback about the video, but I don't get the feedback from the people, which is kind of cool. Anyhow, thank you all for watching. I'm getting close to 2,000 subs. I don't know, that could happen someday. I will tell you that my YouTube channel will continue to morph and change. I've got some things I'm working on. I don't know if I'm going to be putting out as many covers. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I love this show. I love talking to you. Your questions make the show. And I'm going to keep trying to do this show as much as I can. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being a sub. Thank you for being my friends. Some of you guys online are my friends. And shout outs to everybody asking me questions. Michael Perry and Hungry Drummer Joey and Rich Raw Dog and The one guy, I can't remember your name, but he asked me about the Tama questions. Tama stands. Thank you all for being out there and asking questions. I appreciate you all. Have a great day. See you. Bye.